What's up, the internet? It's me. It's Kyle. How's it going? This is In Stores This Week, where I am once again, and as always, joined by the undercaffeinated Dan Wickline. See, this is what happens when you only drink water. You can't even form words. And we are joined once again by our newest compatriot, a person who I don't think he realized what he was getting drafted into when he signed up for this, Jay Burns.
How's it going, everybody?
Okay, I said all the things. Before we get into the new books that are in stores this week, I wanted to mention something Dan and I talked about at the end of his show today. Tomorrow night on Comics Collectibles with Rex and John, they'll be joined by AR Comics, Alec from AR Comics. They will have incredibly rare Moon Knight pages from Tales of Suspense 33.
Pages.
Well, pages. One's a page, one's a cover. So, a page from, what was the book, Dan? Do you remember?
It's Werewolf by Night number 33.
Yes, Werewolf by Night number 33.
It is page number 2, drawn by Don Perlin, inked by Howie Perlin. It is the technically the second appearance of Moon Knight. It's the carryover of Moon Knight's first appearance, where and in the page you get Frenchie, you get Moon Knight, and you get Werewolf by Night, Jack Russell himself. So you get 3 big characters right there on the page. And also there's a Moon Knight number 1 cover from late last year. It's a variant cover by John Romita Jr., which is most likely the only time John Romita Jr. has ever drawn Moon Knight on a cover.
Very true. No. And these 2 pieces are both incredibly rare and incredibly collectible. And they are valued at incredibly rare, incredibly collectible prices. But there will be other things, as they've sent me the list of things that will be on the show tomorrow already. And some of those things include Scotty Young Moon Knights and other Moon Knight related things that will be affordable and collectible for you. Oh my God, what is this? I just clicked on a thing I shouldn't have clicked on because now I'm going to have to buy a thing on the show tomorrow night. Damn it. I hate when that happens. So, there will be other Moon Knight things related to the Moon Knight stuff tomorrow on the Rex and John. Generally talk about spam and tacos, but this week we're going to talk about comics show.
Yeah, and keep in mind that the reason they're doing this Moon Knight thing is you probably haven't heard, but Marvel's going to do a live-action Moon Knight show starting tonight. I think it's at midnight if you're on the West Coast. I think 3 a.m. And it's on this little-known thing called Disney Plus. So there's some guy named Oscar Isaac. He'd been in like Star Trek or something like that, or was it Star Wars maybe? And some guy named Ethan Hawke. So that's happening tonight too. So that's probably why they're doing the whole Moon Knight thing tomorrow.
Well, I'm sure that's why they're doing it. And Dan will be talking about Moon Knight on Thursday. And thank God someone else is producing that show because I probably won't have watched it yet. So, I just looking at my schedule, I don't think I'm going to get a chance to watch it till Friday. Very disappointed and upset by that, but things happen. I'm on deadline the next 3 days. All right, so we are going to get started with books that are in stores this week, except for one. One book doesn't come out for like a month and a half.
So why are we talking about it?
Because they sent us a PDF and you put it in the thing, and then we all read it, and then I looked it up and realized it doesn't come out for a month and a half.
Which one?
Rick and Morty. It's delayed.
Oh. Yeah. They sent it to me like it was coming out this week.
Right. It's supposed to have been out this week.
Yeah.
But now it's been pushed back. So, why don't we start here? This is Rick and Morty Infinity Hour number 2.
I enjoyed the first one. I know Kyle was kind of hit or miss on it, but I'm not a Rick and Morty guy. I've never watched the show. But I am enjoying this series because it's just silly. It's odd. It's silly. they keep introducing characters that are just strange, like the poodle or the poodle. Excuse me, the poodle. It it's almost like an origin story for an alternate version of Rick. And I know that Rick is many versions of Rick. There's the Council of Ricks, so we're not sure which Rick this is. And I believe he's either there was a typo or at one point he's referred to as Rich Sanchez. So it might have been a typo in the book, but yeah, it's a fun series. I'm really liking this.
Jay, what did you think?
So, just like with Dan, I'm not really a Rick and Morty fan. I do like Solar Opposites though for some reason, but I just can't get into Rick and Morty. But the art in this book, it looks like the show. I mean, I have seen it, just not a fan of it myself. But I would say this comic is really good. So even if you're not a fan of Rick and Morty, you could probably get into the comic. As strange as that sounds. Because, like I said, I'd give it a shot. Even if you don't like Rick and Morty, the comic was pretty good.
Yeah, I again also not a Rick and Morty fan, which is ironic because we keep reading Rick and Morty books on this show. But the thing about it is that if you just needed an acid trip of a cartoony comic book, this would be perfect. If you didn't know it was related to an animated show from the guy who made up Community, you don't need to. It could just be, holy crap, what drugs are these guys on, and can I have some? And that's how the first issue I wasn't a huge fan of, but now reading the second issue and following that up, it really is kind of coming together that if I take out what I know and just accept the comic book for what it is, it's a stronger comic book. That being said, to all my friends out there, including a certain Mr. Kevin Eastman, if you want to write a Poodle standalone book that's sort of like Poodle meets Boris the Bear, I'm here for it. I will spend all the money. Like financially unwise amounts of money.
Yeah, Poodle's pretty awesome.
That's all the things for me, right? Like all of them.
For me, I get into this because I keep Rick and Morty, of course, were Doc and Marty from it was a
except that they're related.
Yeah. Well, no, that way it was originally like a fan type setup. The very first draft of Rick and Morty was like a fan tweak or an homage to Doc and Marty. So when I read these, I always think of Rick as Doc.
And you should.
Yeah. Which makes it a lot even more interesting, too.
Oh, for sure. Like I said, for me, I just got to divorce it from everything I know about what it is. I gotta forget how many damn Pickle Rick action figures I sold. And I have to divorce it from the people I sold them to. Like, not that they were bad people, but it's just one of those things is that I need to put as much distance between my brain and this book as possible. And once I do that, the book becomes a lot more fun. So.
All right.
And I'll be honest, it's my hang up on a lot of things, right, Dan? You and I have talked about this. Like, my brain gets in the way of my enjoyment of far too many things.
Absolutely.
So, let's go to this here. This is one of the Zenoscopes, and I'm blanking on which one it is.
Yes, this is Grim Fairy Tales Myth and Legends Quarterly number 7. Jack and Jill.
Can I tell you how hard it was to find this? Because it wasn't called Jack and Jill. It wasn't called Grim Fairy Tales. It's called Myths and Legends Quarterly. And none of the other things that if you look at the cover, you go, oh, that's what this is called, are what it's called in my system. It's such a pain in the neck.
Yeah, well, I did put Myths and Legends in the write-up here in the.
You did, yes. And that's the only reason I was able to find it.
By the way, this has Jack, this has Jill, not one hill in the entire book.
Right. Nobody broke their crown. No. By the way, that whole thing is about falling down and cracking your skull and then your girlfriend following after when you fall off a cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the whole thing's a suicide poem.
Yeah. Oh, and also, no water.
No.
No pails of water.
Nope.
No.
They never went to get water. At no point did they leave to go get water.
Right.
And somehow he merges into Jack the Giant Killer.
Yeah.
Well, that's been a fan theory for a long time, that Jack from Jack and Jill was always Jack from Jack and the Beanstalk. If he had if things
Tinder?
had broken differently.
If you have Tinder.
He had
Oh,
Tinder.
who's this Jill chick? All right.
Well, the
why I'm
rumor
here,
was Jill
folks.
was Little Miss Muffet. Yeah.
Yeah, that
I
makes
still don't know what a
sense.
tuffet is, but we'll go with it. So
It's
let's
a
start.
seat. It's a chair.
I don't believe that, Dan. I believe it's a euphemism for a butt. Jay, what did you think of this one?
It's a Zenescope book, so for me, Zenescope, they always kill it with their art. I love the art of this book. It's a twisted story. It kept me guessing until the very end, honestly. There were parts where I thought I knew where it was going. Nope, I didn't know it all. Really, I thought it was a really strong book, though.
Yeah, there were some definite twists and turns in here. It's definitely not Jack and Jill. Yeah, it's more Jack versus Jill, which would have been interesting to have on the cover. Myth and Legend, Jack versus Jill. Because then pushing him down the hill would have made sense. I thought the dialogue felt a little. No, wait, that's not this one. I'm confusing. This one was, I liked the story well enough. It was an interesting dive into an area they haven't really played with before. It's typical, but Zenescope style, but I don't think they've done Jack and Jill before. So it was interesting to see that. I think that Jack is an interesting character. I'm curious how he got Danny Rand's mask. But other than that, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, with this one for me, the fact that these books only come out quarterly is not a problem because they never tie together, and I wish they did. I wish I had more of who the hell is this Jack?
Mm-hmm.
Where is Jill? And what's the deal with the skulls, man? Like, coming into it instead of as I went through it. That for me was certainly kind of a hiccup. The other thing for me with this is that I'm so used to Dave Franchini and Ralph Tedesco and these guys and the way they write that this one's David Wool, who has a different sort of authorian style. I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. He's a different style as an author.
Yeah.
And I could feel it. So I don't know.
David write that?
Him and Dave wrote it together, it looks like.
Oh, see, I thought there was another scripter on it for some reason. Yes, it's scripted by Jenna Lynn Wright.
Not according to my notes.
Story by Dave Franchini, David Wool, and Jenna Lynn Wright. Writer Jenna Lynn Wright.
Okay, still, I mean, the statement holds true. It's not written by the three guys I expect to write it.
Yeah, Ralph and Joe weren't part of this. It was
right.
Dave, and then Jenna. The way Zenescope works scripting wise is that editorial usually comes up with about a paragraph, few sentence paragraph description of what they want the book to be, and then it's turned over to the actual writer, who then plots it out from what they said and then writes the script. So when it says Joe, Ralph, Dave, usually they've plotted out the overall arc of the universe. and they say, okay, well, it's going to be this. So, but the actual individual story, most of that comes from whoever the writer of that issue is. In the same way that Marvel Studios, works, where they want Moon Knight to cover a certain area, but it's up to the showrunner and the director to really put the story together, just to make sure they hit certain beats. So when it says Dave Franchini and David Wool's a story by, it's not as much that as in you want to look to see who wrote it or scripted it.
My notes both say writer next to those guys' names. So, and again, it's the same thing though. Like the books I like from Zenescope are usually the books those guys are actually writing, or someone like Pat Shand or Raven or you, or there are voices that I expect to hear.
Yeah.
In terms of the way they write. When somebody else doesn't write it, it feels off to me. That's all. Not bad, just different.
Yeah.
All right. So while we're at it, let's there we go. That's the right side of my face.
No,
let's go to the other Zenescope book this week, which is
Grim Fairy Tales 58.
Yes.
Now, this one was actually written by Dave Franchini.
Yes.
Along with story by Joe and Ralph and Dave and David. And we're picking up, we're back from the 1930s storyline that they were doing. Sky is still going around collecting the gems and ends up on what appears to be a pretty much post-apocalyptic world where the apocalypse seemed to involve vampires from what the story explains. And there's only one person left. And she a little cray-cray.
No, you think?
Yeah. I guess living alone on the planet gets you a little cray-cray. Just saying.
You don't have to live alone. You just have to live with me. Heyo. So I was saying to Jay before the show, I have some hang-ups when it comes to GFT.
Oh, but okay. I thought you said I have some hang-ups.
Well, I do, but no, specifically when it comes to GFT. And a big part of it is that there's sections of it that I've missed. Mm-hmm. So I need to go back and reread probably issue 30 to, when did we start reading? Around 55?
Yeah.
So I probably got 25 or so issues to read to really kind of figure out, because this is their only ongoing series, really. There are some others that maybe get 2 or 3 issues here, but this is their only ongoing series. So there's storytelling that has happened that I'm not privy to. Mm-hmm. And it's so informed by the past of this series. Like, you can still see plot points and references in 58 issues in that reference number 1. In a big way.
Yeah.
So to have a big chunk of the story missing, it's hard for me to fully ingratiate myself to the character. That's not the right word. To fully accept the character, mm-hmm. like and fully understand what's happening. So for me, they're still great books and I love reading them, but I need to go do my homework.
I know what you mean. I'm still in my mind, even though I know this is Sky, I still see Celia.
Right.
It's hard in my mind. I haven't gotten past that yet.
That's a definite thing.
Yeah.
Jay, what are you thinking?
I'm kind of in the same boat as you are. Jenna collects pretty much all Zenescope stuff, but I am so far behind. I think the last thing I read was A Tales of Terror. This did, though, seem kind of like, I guess, like a team-up book, because I noticed that they were characters from different stories in this. Like, I think Shang, I think that's one of the books. Shang or Fang. That group of people.
Mm-hmm.
There was Mercy, I think is her name. There's a bunch of people I don't remember the names of, but it kind of felt like a like kind of like a crossover book. But again, this is the first one I've read of this entire thing. So
Yeah, this is the crossover book. This is
okay.
This is basically the Avengers for Zenoscope. They bring in her teacher and the other two who are helping him and going to Oz and stuff like that. So yeah, they're kind of all pulled together into this book.
Gotcha. Once again, though, it's a Zenoscope book, so beautiful art.
Yeah, I just always want to shout out Ralph Tedesco on these covers, and for picking Igor Vitorino all those years ago to be like, hey, can I convince you to do one thing perfectly forever? Because Igor just every damn time.
Yeah. They've had some great cover artists that came out of Zenoscope. Though you go back to David Nakayama, Ebas, Talent Caldwell did some stuff for them. I mean, there's been some incredible cover artists coming out of there. Mike DeBalfo.
I remember years ago, I had a chance, and this was Ebas had done some stuff for Aspen.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was Aspen. Maybe it was somebody else. I don't really remember, but I had the chance to own original covers.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't because I thought, they're just some women with big breasts. It's a passing fad. I'm an idiot, and I will cop to that.
When I did Sinbad for them, I talked Talent Caldwell into selling me the 2-page or the wraparound cover for issue 1. And then I was talking to Ebas about, because we had a Talent Caldwell cover and we had an Ebas cover. And I was trying to talk Ebas into selling me, and he did 1 page, a single page cover. Ebas wanted almost, well, I want to say twice, but a good chunk more for the 1 page than Talent wanted for the 2 page. So I was hesitant. And then I think a few months later, that and a few other pages were stolen out of his portfolio at a convention and are just gone. So if you ever see the original art for Sinbad #1 out there by Ebas, it's stolen.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't me, by the way.
I think it was Dan.
But I do have the 2-page Talent Caldwell cover that he did that was just phenomenal.
Yeah. No, like I said, Ebas is a monster, and I love him. All right. Speaking of people who are monsters, John Buscema. Like, and by the way, that's monsters in a good way. Like, I'm not, disparaging anyone.
Now, I put this one on here because I am a big fan of the books IDW do. And they do those big oversized ones, but they're expensive as hell.
Just in paper alone, the production cost is huge, but still.
Yeah, so and they're worth it, but if you can't afford those, but you still want to see some of the original art from some of these amazing classic artists, like John Buscema and his run on Silver Surfer, these artisan editions are smaller and more reasonably priced. Like I've got the Fantastic Four one here I picked up.
Wow.
So like I said, it's not as big. It's still a good size, and it's still, all the original art shot. So in this case, it's Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four. But getting a chance to look inside these books, it is just so neat to see all of this original art done that way. And also, if you're like, well, it's just going to be pictures, most of the time back then, the lettering was done on the page itself. So you're also getting the story with it too, if they get all the pages. So there is a chance that some pages are going to get skipped, depending on what Scott Dunbier was able to pull together. Scott Dunbier is the one over there that pulls, they pick a new project and he starts reaching out, trying to find all the art for it. Because a lot of this stuff is in personal collections. So he's contacting people going, hey, can you give me a really good scan of that page you own and stuff like that? But these are really fun. They're a great piece of history, and they're a way to see the original art as it was meant to be, as it was done before the colors or anything else. And you look at some of these older artists, man, seeing their black and white work is just phenomenal. You really get to see how good these guys were.
Oh my goodness. This was one of my favorite ones we did this week. This was just old school black and white. This is the Silver Surfer I prefer. There's an iteration of him out there where he's like this dude bro. I never liked that one.
Mm-hmm.
This was like being in a time machine going back 30 years. I'm laying on the floor with my comics unprotected, unboarded, just spread out everywhere, just reading and enjoying myself. This was, corny as that sounds, this book was great. I loved reading this.
Yeah, I've seen so many of these pages over the years that you can never afford to collect and you can never afford to have, and you really only get to see them. I think Dan's frozen.
No.
Oh, you didn't move for like an unreasonable amount of time.
I pulled up the PDF again and I was looking at it.
Yeah, but you weren't breathing. It scared me. No,
I did the same thing on Dexter, and the director was scared. So
right. No, so like I said, for me, it's one of those kind of what's the word I'm looking for? This is a great way to consume something that you'll never be able to actually put your hands on.
Yeah.
And while I'm not necessarily a Surfer fan, I am a John Buscema fan. And so this is a great way to fully kind of grasp and get behind a creator and art that is just so quintessential and important to our industry, but that you'll never be able to have as part of your own collection. So
yeah. And he does not get the credit that he is due for his work. Because normally they talk about Ditko and Kirby, and then they start talking about John Romita, and stuff like that. And Buscema was more of the steady guy in studio that could do whatever they handed him. And he did some amazing books.
Right.
Gorgeous work.
And by the way, like, I think he even gets downplayed to his brother Sal.
Yeah.
Like, Sal Buscema is such a quintessential artist in creating like the way Hulk looks now, still to this day.
Yeah.
The way the Defenders look, the way Cap looks. That
do you think Sal said, I'm going to make Hulk look like Angry Shemp, and just went with that?
I mean, he ain't wrong.
Like Shemp when he was, craving cheese. Yeah.
Right? So, all right, let's move on. Peter Stanchik gets some help from a character that I had forgotten was in the Valiant universe.
Yeah, they haven't done much with her lately, have they?
Yeah, I had forgotten about Faith entirely.
Yeah.
And to say that it was a nice breath of fresh air in this book would be kind of an understatement for me. I have not been as high on Harbinger as Dan has. I've been enjoying it, but like, it's not my favorite of the Valiant titles. But adding Faith in and taking it the direction they've started to go has been very nice and has been fun.
I'm glad they brought Faith in, because now we're dealing with somebody who knew Peter back when he was asshole Peter. He was the guy that that ended up just help destroy everything. So it's interesting because everybody we've been dealing with up until this point of the book have met him after the fact. they knew of him. They knew the horror stories and stuff like that. And now he's coming back around to be a hero. She's the first one to come by going, what's all this hero crap? You know, why the neon outfit? Mind you, she likes the outfit, wants to know who did the tailoring, but yeah. And I've been enjoying the story and the character because it's a real different take on this part of the Valiant universe that was always so corporate heavy with Toyo Harada and the Risings, all that stuff going on, that we're kind of just getting down to street level. And in a way, it's Valiant's X-Men in a lot of ways. And this is, well, what if Professor Xavier, instead of always being behind the scenes and manipulating people, actually used his abilities to become an actual costumed hero? And this is how it comes across to me. And, you know, that's why I have fun with it. And this is just another cool issue to me. I'm really enjoying it. I love the fact they brought Faith in. The artwork, again, is consistently good. It's a nice surprise ending. The choice of, instead of just red coming out at the end, it's this kind of Technicolor rainbow. Really makes you go, wait, what's going on here? So, yeah, another good issue of Harbinger.
So for me, after reading this issue, I need to pick up the trade of this. This was really good. For me, this is kind of Valiant at its finest. It brings in Faith, but Faith is not. This is not a Faith story. Faith doesn't overshadow what's going on. They use her very well in this book. They talk about canon events, things that have happened in past Valiant books. They talk about a little bit in this one. Valiant's really starting to pull me back. They lost me a little bit, but with Shadow Man and this one, the writing's starting to get there again for me.
So it's worth noting, this is issue 6. There are 2 more issues yet to come. Mm-hmm. And the first 4 are available in a Harbinger Volume 1.
It's one of the things I like about Valiant is they keep things small. They never do too many titles at one time. So, I think they had a cap when Dinesh was the publisher, that they would never go over. I think it was 6 books a month at most,
something like that.
Yeah, it was very small and manageable, and they've been keeping that, and they don't take the titles too long, so that there's always these great jumping in points for different titles. So, okay, they're going to bring in the Shadow War, and we're going to get a new Archer and Armstrong soon, and then that'll go, and they'll finish, and we'll get another Ninjak, and then we'll get another Quantum and Woody or Exo Man of War. They rotate these around. They never ask you to put out too much money, and they do it in such a way that you're always getting jumping on points. So if you do step out for a while, you can always jump back in.
And even in their heaviest months, by the way, when they are asking you to spend a little more money than normal, every book is worth it. Like, I've had months where when Marvel is publishing heavy and you're going, I'm buying these books because they're books I buy, but God, these are awful.
Yeah.
The thing about Valiant is when they ask you to financially back them in this regard, they don't let you down ever. So I would have, as much as some of the books in this series have not been my jam, mm-hmm. I would have no problem at all spending the money on them. Like, look, this isn't my jam, but this is still a really good comic book. So, all right. Let's go to Buffy. And I'll start on this one. This one is Buffy the Vampire Slayer 25th Anniversary Special number 1. It's hard for me to believe that Buffy is only 5 years newer than White Man Can't Jump. I'm only using that as a reference because Sunday was the 30th anniversary of the release of White Man Can't Jump.
Why do you know that? Why did that come up?
Because the cast had their picture taken together at the Oscars. Rosie Perez, Blade, and Woody
Wesley
Harrelson.
Snipes and Woody Harrelson?
I couldn't think of Wesley Snipes.
What were any of them doing at the Oscars?
I think they were celebrating the 30th anniversary of White Man Can't Jump. But no, so this is one of those things that I have two thoughts that may be unpopular opinions when it comes to this.
Okay.
The first is that for characters like Buffy, and I would say this for Firefly, I would say it for any of the other sort of licensed IP that Boom is dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
I don't love the anthology concept where it's a bunch of little small stories. Not my jam. Not my thing here. It's tell me one really killer anniversary story that's just like, this is amazing. Why couldn't you make this a movie? Or something, tell me that. Don't tell me a bunch of very good short stories.
Yeah.
And the other problem I have with this book is coming off of Buffy the Last Vampire Slayer. This just amazing miniseries that they just finished. This felt like a less good addition to the storyline. And so it was a little hard to read. It was fun. The stories were very good, but it just felt less good than the Buffy we just had.
There was quite a few stories in there. And I'll be honest, the first one, I had a problem with the art on it. Not that it was bad, but it never felt like Buffy to me. The characters didn't feel right to me. The second one, the characters were a little better, and it was a short little story, but it didn't really seem to have much gravitas to it. There was no reason for it. And then there was a few others that just kind of felt weird. And then we got to the last one, and that's the only one that got me to stop and really pay attention as I was reading it. I don't know if it was the art, the fact this was Buffy talking to a psychiatrist in the, well, my friend, and then there's this twist. But at the end of that issue or that story, it talks about continuing in the Vampire Slayer series, which will have somebody else as the Vampire Slayer, but somebody from the main show. I'm trying not to spoil there, but I think it sets up the next arc, the next story they're doing.
Is. That's the one thing I would say about this book, right? Is one of the Sarah Gailey stories. Was it the second one, Trust the Process? I'm having trouble remembering now.
So it should be the last one.
Yeah. So she wrote the last two stories in this, Mirrors Don't Lie and Trust the Process.
Okay.
In Trust the Process, it does set up the next Buffy story arc, which is something to be, something to be said.
It's definitely a different direction for them to take.
Right. Absolutely. So what about you, Jay?
So there's a lot, anthology, there's a lot of stories in it. Some of the stories clicked with me. Some of them I probably could have done without and would have had other stories a little longer. The Xander one I wasn't really into. I did really like the last one and the twist on that. I really did like that one. The very first one, I liked the banter between Giles and Buffy while they're in the hearse, and the little thing that goes on with that story. I haven't read a whole lot of Buffy the Vampire Vampire Slayer books. I mean, of course, I watched that really awesome Christy Swanson movie back in the day, and I watched most of the series growing up. But yeah, like I said, some of the stories were really good. Some of the other stories, they just, I don't know, they felt kind of pointless.
If you're a Buffy fan or you follow the comics and you're thinking hit or miss on this one, that last story, Sarah Gilly, and Carlos Oliveira, it looks like that's the setup for the new series. So you're probably going to want to pick that up for that.
Yeah. All right. So the last 3 books we have.
Yes.
I think are by far the best 3 books we have of the week. And I think I've got them in order, at least in my opinion, of awesomeness.
Okay.
So let's see.
Before you pull them up, I agree with you. The Harbinger may have bumped one of them in my list.
Harbinger definitely deserved to be right. Like Harbinger is certainly 4. If you were to round this out to 5, Harbinger would be number 4.
Yeah. It might have been number 3 on my list, but we'll see. So if I'm guessing, your third one is Panther.
Incorrect. My third one is Something is Killing the Children, number 21.
See, that was higher for me, and I don't read this series. This is the first time I have read a issue of Something is Killing the Children. I've tried to read the House of Pain or House of Slaughter. Whatever.
House of Mouse.
It was interesting. This, even though it doesn't really give us a lot, it teases enough that without knowing anything that happens before this, I'm interested. This got my attention. And like I said, haven't read 20 issues going into this, but I saw that this was the start of a new arc. And I thought, okay, let's dive in here, see if it's a good place to advise readers, hey, if you want to jump in on this book that everybody seems to be talking about, will this be a good spot? And it is. It really is.
Dan, why don't you just make a Post-it note or something? We're going to just go keep reading this book every time they send us one.
If they send it, I'll grab it.
Yeah. No, so I read the first 15 Something is Killing the Children or thereabouts. And then I missed a few because my LCS didn't order enough and there were stuff happens. So there's this weird kind of gap that I need to read a trade. Which is fair. Like it happens, and it's probably how I would if we don't get the PDFs for this book, consume it going forward. For me, it's not I have to have it every week kind of book. But it's something I am desperately interested in continuing.
Who is that on the cover?
Jay, you're the Something is Killing the Children reader, right?
Nope. This is the first one I've ever read. Something Slaughter, though.
House of Slaughter. No, that is... So if you're reading House of Slaughter, that is her family.
Right.
The character on the cover. And I can't remember her name either. She's the main character in the rest of the books.
Okay.
But so her Allison Slaughter, I think, something like that.
Yeah.
She doesn't appear at all. Erica.
Yeah.
Thank you. She doesn't appear at all in this issue, does she?
Very last panel, I think.
Yeah.
Which
is why this is a jumping in point, right? Like this is it's continuing the story, but it's starting a new branch, it feels like. And I'll be honest, like part of the reason that I was okay with kind of taking a pause on the book was that it was getting awful heavy coming down, in the high, the mid-teen numbers.
Mhm.
And I was reading a lot of other heavy books at the time. This book is super heavy.
You know, you
But-
can put it on the table.
Yeah. If I was here for dad jokes, Dan, I'd be making them myself. No, like I didn't need to feel depressed after I finished reading a book. Was kind of how I was feeling at the time. And this book was more of that. However, this didn't feel so depressing and so hard to read.
Oh yeah, it's happy about a little kid having their entire family wiped out.
In that it felt like a setup. Like instead of it just was more of a slog through the awful, this is awful that's going to head somewhere. And it Sean said it, 15 through 20 are definitely a lot slower in pace than the first 15. And that's kind of what I was feeling, is that it was slowing down. It was getting to be this kind of drudgery. This was depressing and sad, but it didn't feel like drudgery.
By the way, hit the like and subscribe buttons while you're there. A lot of you are on YouTube. Hit that thumbs up, please.
I'd rather you just subscribe. But we won't get into the difference between liking and subscribing. Do both, but really subscribe.
Yeah, there's a notification bell. And
you got to click the bell.
Yeah. Click the bell. Click the bell.
I don't care about thumbs up. Click the bell. Click subscribe. All right. Jay, you've never read one?
No. Jenna had borrowed the first volume from work, and her and Sean read it, but when it came time where I had the time to read it, she had to take it back. So then Sean started collecting it, but he didn't get the first 5. So I was like, well, I'm not going to read it until I can read the first 5 of them. And then I just never got around to it. And then I read this and I was like, man, I really do need to read this.
So you're telling me
I
it's
wasn't
Miss Jen's
lost
fault.
or anything, because no, I'd never say that. No.
Making
Miss
Jenna
Jen, if
take
you're
the-
watching, Kyle said that, not me. But after reading this, I was like, okay. I'm not lost. The story moved pretty quick for me. Maybe it was a little heavy for me because I haven't read anything like this in a while. But this was really good. This is really good. If this was the first one that you have read, I think you'd be fine.
Yeah, I didn't feel good. I actually got intrigued by it, and I want to know more. And I don't care about Erica. I don't care about the guys with the teeth on their bandanas. I want to know more about that detective and the little girl who just lost her family, and the bartender and the guy that proposes to her every night. Those are the people I want to know about. I could care less about the chick on the cover because I don't know her.
Yeah, it's I get the feeling, Dan, that if you were going to equate what's coming to something you can reference, it's going to be Reachery.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
So, all right.
Gonna kill a whole lot of people.
Yeah. Number 2 in my top 3 is Panther. And I will tell you why.
Because Set's a bastard.
Huh?
Set's a bastard.
Well, yes, Set is a bastard, but Set's always been a bastard. Like,
Sure.
let's not, like, if you have any knowledge of mythology at all, the god Set has always been a bastard. But no, this to me felt like a proper origin of Panther. In this kind of, you're starting to understand why people are after her, what her kind of curse is, and why she is the way she is. And the thing about it is that this is the kind of book that when Dynamite does, always winds up being my favorite. It's so drenched in classic mythology.
Yeah.
and kind of a classical sort of origin, that it's been super fun. And that it really has been it really was kind of a great second issue, which I feel like we're further into this book.
Yeah. It has given us a lot, and it is taking a long time to come out, like Triple B points out. It does seem like it's been a while since issue 1.
First one came out January 5th.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, that's a little gap.
Mm-hmm.
Also, why is Horus on the cover when I don't think he actually shows up in the entire book?
I do believe that Dynamite sometimes just puts stuff on covers.
No.
By the way, there are 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, at least 16 covers for this book.
Is that all?
Oh, wow.
Well, some of them are like the black and white incentive of a colored version and the virgin incentive of a color version and the Ken Hazer TMNT homage version, and they're,
Did this get that one?
What?
Did this get a Hazer cover?
It did, and it's not a bad cover. But it's not a TMNT that I immediately get the reference to.
Yeah.
Which, if I don't get the TMNT reference, you may be a bit too obscure.
Yeah, you may be. Now you got me looking at the covers.
It's this one.
Ooh.
It's a great cover, but I'm going, what TMNT is that a reference to?
Oh, that one is?
Yes.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Correct. I think it's a reference to the Donatello one-shot because it was all in this kind of purple one-tone color, but yeah, monotone, I don't know for sure.
What's underneath his signature after
Laird?
Okay.
I can tell that it's a Peter Laird reference, but like the lines aren't heavy enough to be Kevin Eastman.
Yeah.
So anyhow, what did you guys think of this book?
Jay, let you go first.
Okay. Great visuals for one. I'm not familiar with this character at all. Now, granted, this is only the second issue. But is this a character that Dynamite has done before, or is this a brand new character?
It's a character that's been around for quite a few years. She's tied into the Vampirella universe.
Oh, okay.
She's usually a friend of Vampirella's. This is the first time in a long time, though, they've really just focused on her and tried to approach her origin story.
Wasn't she a Harris book at one point too?
Well, yeah, that's where Vampirella came from. Right.
No, I mean like in the Lady Death.
Yeah, late 90s, the Bad Girl era. She was. I think Mark Texera was the artist on it then.
Yes. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really did like the story, though. It does make me want to go read number 1. I did like the story, but not familiar with the character at all.
The nice thing is you don't really need to know anything past number 1. So if you pick up the first issue, you're going to get all you need. You don't need to dive into her past or anything like that. They're not really going that deep. She's popped up, like I said, a couple times over the last few years. I know when Nancy Collins did a Vampirella novel called The Blood Invasion, Panther is in that as well.
Oh, okay.
So,
yeah.
But I love the how they're tying it into the Egyptian iconography.
Yeah.
And it's good timing too, because had this come out on earlier, it wouldn't be coming out around the same time as Moon Knight, which is going to be big on this stuff too. So it may be delayed on purpose. Probably not, but it's definitely serendipitous.
For sure.
We got one more book in about 3 minutes.
We don't have to be out just on time. If we go over by a minute or two, nobody's going to kill us because we're talking about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles annual number 20 or annual 2022. But before we do that, there's another TMNT book that we didn't get a PDF for, or maybe we did and we missed it. That's super important this week. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 127 is the return of the original female turtle, Venus.
Oh.
So the deal is this, right? You just had Jenica, which was this big to do in the turtle world. But you have to remember that Jenica is a human who turned into a turtle when she interacted with the mutagen. This was the female turtle. So this is a character that hasn't been around in 15 or 16 years. Maybe longer. I don't remember exactly how long it's been. But just so you know, Turtles 127 is going to be super hot this week.
I didn't necessarily grab that PDF, and I saw your note too late to do it. But I didn't because I find that the book is not very approachable for a new reader, where I thought the annual might be.
Oh, sure. No, and
it truly was.
Yeah, and I will say this. This is a middle of the run book. Like, I totally am with you on that, but it's an important note as we go forward with the Turtles that she is back. Because what it does is it actually sets up a Dr. Jasper Barlow story that's going to get told. And it brings in more of the punk frogs. And it actually leads into 128, which is a new first appearance of some villains. So 128 is actually a mid-story jumping in point.
I will keep an eye out for it next time they send stuff out.
Yeah. Also, I don't know if I was supposed to say that. Don't tell the internet.
If you tell the internet, Kyle's going to come by and Will Smith you.
So, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Annual 2022. Written by Junie Ba with a very Junie Ba art style. If you're not familiar with Junie Ba, what's the matter with you? I kid. He has a great book called Monkey Meat at Image Comics that is absolutely batcrap crazy.
It is. We looked at that first issue. That was just insane.
Yep. So this is written, drawn, covers by Junie Ba.
I was a little surprised by this issue. To me, I was surprised it wasn't written by Kevin Eastman, because it felt like a return to and an homage to the original, or when the Turtles started, to the point where they all get red masks again. Yeah. You know, stuff like that, those moments, which were really neat. And I'm going to be honest here, there's a point in the book where they get back to where they used to live. And they're there because Splinter, of course, has died in the series. And they're there to pay tribute to Splinter. And that hit me, having lost my own father within the last year and a half. I welled up a little bit. To them coming back to pay tribute to their father. And this is a really good book. It brings out a lot of what I remember from the Turtles. Now, it's been around so long that I know the people who've been reading it forever love what they're doing. But there's a certain point where a fandom becomes kind of insular and isn't inviting into new people or people who haven't been around. And that's kind of where I see Turtles as right now, where this didn't need to know about Jenica or Venus or anything else going on. This was just a pure story of the four Turtles and paying homage to their father and dealing with their passing. It's a book about grief, and yeah, like I said, it just hit home for me.
Yeah, when you told me that one of the books made you emotional, I'm like, the only book we read that was even remotely emotional was this one. And Junie Ba did a great job of paying homage to the groundwork laid by Peter and Kevin. And by so many other great people who have worked on this book since. The thing I like about Junie Ba's writing in his work is that he brings in a lot of the African mythology that's part of his background. So the villain has a little bit more to it than just being a generic baddie, right? It's not just a Foot Clan soldier, or it's not just Shredder, or it's not just Bebop and Rocksteady, or it's he picked something that would let the emotions of the story he was telling that it would fit, which was super cool of him, and I think super smart. The art style feels odd for a Turtles book, only in as much as you're used to such a very specific look, right? If you're a Turtles fan, you're used to that Kevin Eastman real thick line art, or you're used to the way it's been drawn recently by IDW. This doesn't feel like that. This is a very specifically a Junie Ba style book. And it's nice. I like it a lot. I like the story. It didn't resonate with me the same way it resonated with Dan in the emotional level, but it did resonate with me a hugely historical level as a Turtles fan. It felt like this is a good way of saying, all right, we see everybody who came before us. Let's pay homage to that. And I think that's hugely important in a series that's been going this long. How about you, Jay?
It is almost like Dan had my notes right down to the fact that it's coming up on a year since I lost my dad. So for me to, I almost didn't make it after that panel. I ended up finishing it, but to sit here and say I wasn't bawling would be a lie. This book made me. It got me. It really did. This was one of my favorite ones that we did. So, and the art style was okay to me. It kind of felt like Nickelodeon Ninja Turtles a little bit, I think. But I love the story. The story was so good to me.
If they decided to do like a mini series where they got away from everything else going on and just did a mini series with Junie Ba and did just the 4 turtles again, I would pick it up. And I don't think I would pick up the regular Turtle series because, like I said, I'm not a turtle guy. But if this is what he was doing, I'd be on board.
Awesome. I'll tell Kevin.
Please.
So, with all that being said, those were our books for this week. We will be back next week for another installment of In Stores This Week. Many retailers throughout the country have gotten a notification from Diamond this week that, once again, as has become so common these days, their books are delayed 24 hours or so. I don't know that wound up happening, as Miss Jen's books were supposed to be delayed, but it appeared she got everything this week. So we'll see. But just be prepared when you go into your local comic shop that there may be some delays. People might not be getting their books until Wednesday, stuff like that. Also, remember to tune in tomorrow to Comic Collectibles with Rex and John, so that you can see you have a chance at some really cool Moon Knight stuff, including the Moon Knight page that'll be available tomorrow, and the Moon Knight cover that'll be available tomorrow.
At least tune in to watch and see how well it goes, how it sells.
Yeah, right.
That's what I mean. I'm doing the show beforehand. And by the way, you're welcome to come visit us
Oh,
beforehand.
yeah.
Christine Shin is going to be on. We're talking about her new book, her Kickstarter. But then I'm going to stick around and keep an eye on that too, because I collect original art. I want to see how it does and how it well. You know, I don't feel like selling my truck to be able to buy it, but yeah.
Right. It's true. We don't talk about cost of things here, but wow. So make sure you tune in for that. And then Dan will be back tomorrow with Christine Shin, and Thursday to talk about the Moon Knigget, or the Knights Who Say Moon. Yeah, so we will see everybody then. In the meantime, head over to comicshoplocator.com and type in the zip code of where you are or where you may be going to be, and find out where local comic shops are nearby to you. I have to do some travel. I had to do some traveling this past weekend, inadvertently, and I used Comic Shop Locator to find something so that I could do something that wasn't work. And then I had to do some traveling again in the coming days, and I need to find a local comic shop in that area so that, again, I can find something to do that doesn't work. So, in the meantime, we will see.
Before you go, if we are going to stay, if Jade ends up becoming a permanent member of this trio, we need to come up with a better way of doing the comic shop locator, because you watch Jeff Dunham, how Peanut talks about Jeff Dunham's website, Dunham, Dunham.com. We need that, like comic shop locator.com.
I will run it by them and see if there's something they would like to continue to pay us for.
I'm down. Just saying, I'm down.
So, comicshoplocator.com to find comic shops nearby to you.
.com.
For Jay, I've been Kyle. Dan's not welcome back. No, I'm kidding. For Jay and Dan, I've been Kyle. This has been in stores this week. Go out to your local comic shop tomorrow and be cool.
And everybody.
I wasn't ready.
Oh, okay.
I really did think like you guys would take longer to say goodbye.
Good night, everybody.